Assalamualaikum. I am Zufra Fameen, and I am Research Associate at the Center of Pakistan and International Relations. I welcome you all to today's webinar on the subject of immense significance, focusing on emerging dynamics in the Middle East, policy options for Pakistan. The contemporary Middle Eastern politics is witnessing a transformative shift that is marked by interstate competition, coupled with the interplay of international, regional, and domestic politics. For instance, the Abraham Accords of 2020, the aftermath of GCC rapprochement, the fresh deliberations concerning the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Israel's normalization drive, and most importantly, the 17th extraordinary session of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Council of Foreign Ministers meeting here in Islamabad. These fresh developments pose both challenges and opportunities for Pakistan to pursue its foreign policy objectives aligned to its core geopolitical and geo-economic interests in the Middle East. So the given assertion potentially requires Islamabad to revisit its foreign policy towards the Middle East region to get a sense of how the trajectory will go and how the dynamics of the region are going to unfold with the passage of the time. So with reference to it, COPAIR has organized this webinar to seek an assessment of the challenges that Pakistan is faced with on its economic, security, and foreign policy front, considering the dynamics of major regional actors, foresee the prospects of cooperation and engagement in the future. I'm really honored to have with us President COPAIR, Ms. Amna Munawwarawan, Chairman COPAIR, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood. Ambassador Khalid is a former ambassador of Pakistan to Iran, Iraq, China, Saudi Arabia, and Mongolia. He is also a former permanent representative of Pakistan to OIC and the Economic Cooperation Organization. Our distinguished panel of speakers include Professor Dr. Nazir Hussain, who is Dean Social Sciences and Humanities at University of WA. We also have Professor Dr. Amna Mahmood, who is a professor and Dean Faculty of Social Sciences at Department of Politics and International Relations at International Islamic University, Islamabad. The third speaker that we have with us is Dr. Syed Qadil Abbas, who is Assistant Professor at the School of Politics and International Relations, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. Here, I would like to request every speaker to kindly present their views for about 10 minutes. And when all the speakers are done, we can then move on to the question and answer session. So now, before I turn the floor towards our worthy panelists, I would like to request President COPAIR, Ms. Amna Munawwarawan, to present her welcome and introductory remarks. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Saurav, and Honorable Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, our Chairman of Center of Pakistan and International Relations and also Chairman of Institute of Strategic Studies, Honorable Dr. Nazir, who is always very supportive, Dr. Qadil Abbas, and our dear friend, Dr. Amna. Thank you very much for joining us today because after OIC session, I think this is the right time to discuss many of the issues and how Middle East politics is in its transformation phase with the emergence of new players. And I think regional power politics is getting more important day by day. So geoeconomic priorities and emerging technologies has changed strategic policies of different countries of Middle East. So Pakistan needs to adopt a balanced approach, as we discussed earlier as well, and stand for regional and social and economic collaborations. OIC session in Pakistan provided an opportunity for Pakistan to merge as a welfare state addressing an amicable humanitarian solution for Afghanistan and no doubt Palestine and Kashmir issue as well. After OIC session, Pakistan is considered, in my opinion, an important stakeholder of the region. But here I would like to listen to the worthy panelists with their opinion regarding the Saudi-Iran relations and recognition of Israel, and then how Pakistan is going to play an important role in Afghanistan, and future policy recommendations for Pakistan Foreign Office. As I believe, Pakistan government main aim was to host this OIC meeting in Pakistan to devise a mechanism for its international community to deliver aid to Afghanistan despite these sanctions. And somehow, because I attended myself the OIC this special session on Afghanistan, so I believe that it's a great achievement and it's a historical event in Pakistan. So I'm thankful to my worthy panelists and looking forward to work together in future on Middle East policy options. Thank you very much. Zora, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind remarks. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to our first speaker for today, Professor Dr. Nazir Hussain, for his views. Sir, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Madam Amna, Ms. Zokrov, worthy panelist. It's a pleasure, and Amna Malik has been very kind always, and very apt, very dynamic. I think this is the first seminar or webinar soon after the extraordinary summit of the OIC foreign ministers. Although Ambassador Saab's institute is also holding the same today at 3 p.m. But Ms. Amna Malik has taken the lead. Congratulations. It's truly been said that this is an opportune time. This is a most important time, and Pakistan is concerned all along with Afghanistan and Afghani affair. And mostly this is a humanitarian affair, not to be in a political or strategic issue. But it's a life of 38 to 40 million funds which is at stake. It vis-a-vis immediate neighbor is concerned, vis-a-vis its own security is concerned, and vis-a-vis the life of 38 to 40 million Afghans are concerned, because the severe winter, lack of food and medicine, and of course the embargo imposed and sanction imposed by the United States of America to the tune of $8 billion Afghan assets are been frozen by the United States of America, and the OIC summit has requested the United States of America. But let's see and hope what happens. Now, this has a state bearing on Pakistan and state bearing on Middle East. As Ms. Amna Malik in her remarks has very elegantly discussed, that there are traditional players in Afghanistan like Saudi Arabia, like Pakistan, like Iran and Russia and Turkey, but there are two new players, Qatar and Turkey. Not saying new, but in the dynamics, and they have a direct relation with the Middle Eastern and South Asian affair. Pakistan being at a very critical juncture of geopolitics and geoeconomic nature, connecting South Asia, Middle East, West Asia, and Central Asia, is always in the dynamics of the extra-regional players and extra-regional states. Now, how the Middle Eastern dynamics are unfolding, as Ms. Sokurov has in her initial remarks said about the Abrahamic Accord, although most of the things have been said on this, more and more countries are willing to join as part of the Abrahamic Accord. And whatever the social and economic and political changes are going inside Saudi Arabia is also impacting tremendously both in the region of Middle East and of course to Pakistan. And this is, for some, this is a very serious concern. And for some, it is opening of the Saudi kingdom and Saudi system to the outside. It has its own consequences and implication, but this is not the focus of our intention. I think one thing which our all panelists are considering and would be considering is how Pakistan can benefit from the opening of the Middle East, and especially with the opening of Saudi Arabia socially and economically and politically. There tremendous potential. Ms. Amna Malik herself being a great lady entrepreneur, and I'm a great regard and efforts again with Ms. Amna Malik, how she's taking this initiative. And her focus is more on economic and financial and trade. One thing which my listeners, my students, my colleagues must understand that until unless, and this is a version I'm borrowing from Ms. Amna Malik, until unless we are not dealing with the Saudis and with the Arabs uh, with compatibility, our vices, our issues would remain oblivion. And that I'm saying is that most of our workers in Saudi Arabia, in Middle East, in Gulf states are unskilled. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not trade barons. They're not very good affected in their conversation with the very high ups of the Middle Eastern and the Arab Gulf states. And borrowing a term from my very dear friend, Ms. Amna Mahmood, the old guard of the Middle Eastern kings and sheikhs have gone. It's been 30 years. Now the burden of that issue is no more with the newborn Saudi and Gulf kings or the prince and princesses. So therefore, we have to deal anew with the Middle Eastern and the Gulf states people. And until unless, like people like Ms. Amna Malik would not come out of their shells in order to trade, in order to have ideas, because this is a century of ideas: artificial intelligence, big data, telecommunication, technology. The Arab states are no more in a fold of traditional lifestyle. They are hi-fi. They are totally connected. I have seen many business entrepreneurs of the Gulf states who have multiple TV channels open, and they are watching, they are directing, they are acting. So if Pakistan would like to benefit from the unfolding events, not I'm saying politically, economically and financially, then we also have to open up. I'm not putting all the blames and all the responsibility of the governments. I'm saying that businessmen, entrepreneurs, the Chamber of Commerce and Industries, and people like Ms. Amna Malik have to go up to them what we have to sell. Like, I should not be giving this example, but see the Indians, how they are best marketing themselves personally, in their businesses, in their products. I don't know, Ms. Amna Malik at the end might be throwing some light on it. What we have to offer to the Gulf state, what we have to offer to the Arab countries, that's important. It's not only the labor, it's a skill, it's the ideas, it's how we can become a good partner with them. We can have joint investments. We could have joint ventures within Pakistan and outside Pakistan. And I don't know how much is truth or not, but Mohammed bin Salman has stated, which I have read on medias and on social media, probably Dr. Kandil can throw light on it, that MBS has said that within 5 years, Saudi Arabia would become Europe. I don't know how much is true or not. Europe in what sense? Europe in the sense of culture, Europe in the sense of religious tolerance, Europe in a sense of destiny of the tourism. I don't know. It's not clear yet. But I think this is a God-given opportunity. We should try our best efforts to harness what is opening up, especially in the Gulf states and in the Middle East economics. Now, in political terms, uh, with due reverence and permission from our worthy chairman, Mr. Khalid Mahmood Saab, we should not take sides. That's an important issue. We have taken sides in the past in many occasions, and we have suffered a lot. I think Pakistan must safeguard its strategic interest, in what we say national security interest. That be foremost. If there is something good, whether it's the Saudis, we should accept it. If there is something good, whether it's the Turkeys, we should accept it. If there's a good something with vis-a-vis the Iranians, we should accept it. So I think this policy of adopting Pakistan supreme national security interests at the forefront would benefit Pakistan most than anything else. And we are not taking sides. We are dealing with all these Arab states in a sense of their mutual interest. Until unless they don't have their mutual interest, it will be difficult. And one word of caution at the last, Turkey's economy is going down, unfortunately. Its lira is losing its ground. So we have to be very cautious if we are putting, we have been doing this all along, that if we put all our eggs in one basket, what I mean to say is in Turkey and in Saudi Arabia or in China, that we will be again at loss. And I think at the last, I must compliment the COPAIR for taking this initiative and giving me the opportunity to discuss some of the issues. I know in Ms. Sokorov, 10 minutes is not enough, but as you have restricted, I would not be taking much time. Thank you very much, and looking forward to your very critical questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your invaluable remarks. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Amna Mehmood to present us her views. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Very much for joining me. I think that I was trying to join from computer, but host did not allow me, so I have to speak from this mobile, and it would be hard to station it somewhere uh, to show my picture. Thank you very much, Ms. Amna, and thank you very much for COPAIR to arrange this seminar, very timely and very crucial to understand Pakistan's position in the developing scenario, geopolitical scenario in Middle East. Dr. Nazir Saab very candidly briefed us about the opportunities rising for economic development for Pakistan. And I would certainly second, and as Ms. Amna is already in the process and she is working as an entrepreneur in Middle East and exporter, largest exporter from Pakistan, one of the very large scale exporters of different commodities to Middle East. But as Dr. pointed out, that most of our labor in Middle East is unskilled labor, and they are not having capacity to assert there and give some input and their influence in their local politics of their host countries. That is equally true for Middle East and Europe and America, where our diaspora is certainly in large number, but they are less influential as compared to the Indian lobby. So we have to review our internal policies, and instead of creating more and more universities for general education, we should go for vocational education from the very beginning. And when a student come out from the high school, that he or she must be having a skilled certificate for putting their skills, and certainly they would be highly paid in any of the country of the world, and in that capacity they would be more beneficial for Pakistan to send more remittances to our country. Coming to my topic, that is geopolitics, political landscape in Middle East. We have seen Dr. Saab discuss Abraham Accord and its impact on Middle East politics. And that is very important that Abraham Accord changed the total scenario. I was going through the history of OIC and recall the time when Egypt entered into Camp David Accord, and OIC and Arab League expelled its membership immediately. And then there was an effort by Pakistan to re-include Egypt and to make others understand that Egypt is part of Muslim Ummah, and it was expediency that it entered into accord with Israel. And now the scenario is totally different, as Dr. Nazir Saab told, that almost all the Arab nations are heading towards having diplomatic relations opening towards to Israel. And latestly, we have seen another development that is squared in Middle East. It was previously materialized in Indo-Pacific, and there India is one of the component, along with Japan, Australia, and United States. And same, you see that United States is the sponsor of that accord, and UAE is an inevitable part, because UAE is taking the lead to making a new stride in Middle East in terms of opening towards Israel. And they are, I have read some of the articles on the effort of Mohammed bin Zayed to start a new religion that may be a combination of the three Abrahamic traditions, and that is being criticized as the challenge to the right of choice of religion by the people, and that is against the constitutions of many countries. But anyhow, but he is very enthusiastic in doing that, and I think the United States is using his enthusiasm in making an alliance with making an open alliance with Israel and India. And it is to encircle the whole Middle East in terms of security and in terms of development both. Since India is one of the largest partners of Middle Eastern countries in terms of economic cooperation and development, and they have very large presence of their people in Middle East and earning high remittances from there. And moreover, they are on key positions in Middle East to influence the policy of the government as well. And they offer tangible benefits to our Arab brethren in terms of tourism and entertainment in India. So they are relatively more closer to Indians as compared to their relationship with Pakistan. I think that relationship with Pakistan are more of the lip service. So what I perceive that as recommended by Miss Amna as Dr. Nazir Saab, that we should go despite being all these challenges, we should enter into economic relations and as partner in development as compared to entering into more politics. Because there we are having a very limited capacity. But we should be watchful, and our close ties in terms of military cooperation with the United States and UAE should continue. Because that is one of the edge of Pakistan, that Pakistan is helping in security of holy lands in Saudi Arabia. As Saudi Arabia claimed, as Dr. mentioned, that it would be a Europe, I think that this claim is both in terms of economic development and cultural and social opening as well. We have seen number of developments, visits of Indian artists, concerts, opening of cinemas there, and a scenario is developing in that direction as it would be really Europe in terms of opening of the society and lessening of the restrictions which they have artificially imposed on liberal Arab society. Arab society was not so very conservative from the beginning. It is liberal in terms that Arabs are having close bonds, and religion has less to do with that. After the formation of Israel, it was intensified, but now it is, everyone knows that it is relaxing, and the things are going back. And in this scenario, Mohammed bin Zayed and Mohammed bin Salman are very instrumental to impose agenda of United States that there should be close cooperation of Israel and India and all the Middle Eastern states to counter the so-called threat from Iran. And certainly we are not a party of it, and we are not having the capacity to be a party of it. So in this geopolitical scenario, we have to increase our relationship in terms of economic development, in terms of cooperation in science and technology, offering them better avenues in terms of development and installing our businesses there. That would be better and sustainable way to start good relations on equal basis as a sovereign state, rather than to ask for the aid and help all the times from them. That is actually detrimental to the respect of the Pakistan as a nation. Thank you very much. That is from my side, and I am open to the questions, whatever students and my colleagues present. Thank you.
you so much, ma'am, for your enlightening remarks. I would now like to request our final speaker for today's webinar, Dr. Syed Kandil Abbas, to share his views. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, respectable Ms. Samna Malik, President COPAIR, and Excellency Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab, Chairman COPAIR, honorable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. Today I will try to highlight the role of OIC in Middle Eastern conundrum. And in fact, this topic is becoming more important, keeping in view recent developments in the Middle East. And when we are talking about conundrum of Middle East, the role of OIC is becoming very crucial in this regard. Theoretically, in international relations, we can analyze some conundrum under 3 levels of analysis. And I are generally distinguished between these 3 levels of analysis as the system level, the state level, and the individual level. So these are 3 levels. Under these 3 levels, we can analyze the conundrum of Middle East. We can use 3 indicators to understand conundrum in the Middle East, particularly, under which is in our case is Middle East. These 3 indicators are: number 1, common threats and common interests; secondly, different threats and different interests; and thirdly, no threats and no interests. So these 3 indicators will guide us that how OIC or any other regional or international organization can play its role in resolving regional issues and disputes. Whenever we are having common threats and common interests, that can lead towards alliance and integration. But if we have differences about threats and interests, so result will be conflict and confrontation. And lastly, if we don't have any threat or interest, so there will be no need for any relationship. Presently in the Middle East, we have a lot of differences. Differences are more than commonalities. For example, we have traditional differences between Arab and Ajam, Persians and Arabs. Iran, as a Persian state, is a most important state in the Persian Gulf and in the Middle East. But on the other hand, Arabs are not having compatibility with Iran, particularly in post-Islamic Revolution period after 1979. After 1979, the competition emerged between Iran and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And that competition, in fact, affected whole Middle Eastern region. We can see this competition in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, Qatar, and even in other regions. So based on that, today we are observing that there are serious issues between regional players of Middle East, and even they are not having their mutual cooperation with each other. And in this regard, the role of external players are becoming more important now. That is why we are seeing that the role of Israel is have reached on its decisive level, because on the one hand, Iran is having serious concerns about role of Israel in the Middle East, but on the other hand, Arab states have started a normalization process with Israel. So that is more complicating the situation in the Middle East. Similarly, we have some serious issues about geographic and geopolitical situation of Middle East. For example, even we have naming dispute about Persian Gulf region. Iran is insisting on its traditional name, that is Persian Gulf, and Arabs are not ready to use Persian Gulf, and they are using Arab Gulf for this region. And such conflicts and differences are making more problems between mutual relationship. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation is the second largest intergovernmental body after United Nations. Today, with 57 members states, 57 member states from 4 continents, the OIC is the second largest intergovernmental organization in the whole world after the United Nations, with a collective population reaching over 1.8 billion. That is, in fact, enhancing the importance of OIC. The multilateral platforms such as Arab League and GCC are some other organizations remain unable to play a significant role in fostering regional cooperation and stability in Middle East, particularly in the Persian Gulf region. And there are lots of hopes from OIC in this region, but I think OICs failed to meet with most of these expectations. Therefore, changing global context and shifting dynamics requires balanced collective policies to design political landscape of Middle East according to the state national interests and regional stability. That must be based on regional interest and the national interest of regional states. This requires identifying the key areas and fostering collective regional approach to achieve peace through cooperation. The OIC's mission statement presents it as the collective voice of Muslim world. So that is very important. OIC is considered as the collective voice of the Muslim world that works to protect the interests of Muslim world. It was established by 24 member states in 1969, but today members of OIC are having serious differences with each other, and it's the main reason of its establishment was an attack inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque by Zionist elements. But today we know that the Palestine issue and Israel's role in the Middle East is becoming much more conflictual between member states, because on the one hand, Iran is following the policy to eliminate Israel from world map, but on the other hand, Arabs have started normalization process with Israel. So I believe till these differences are not be resolved, we cannot expect any cooperative environment in the Middle East. These differences are gradually even reaching to the irreversible level, because by starting normalization process, now Israel is trying to establish its political and military presence in the Middle East, and particularly in the neighborhood of Iran. So we know that Iranian presence in different countries and Israeli presence in different countries will pave the way for greater conflict in the Middle East. OIC is no more looking effective in resolving Middle Eastern conundrum because effectiveness of its member states is now declining. And I would recommend that Pakistan role in the Middle East must be uh, maintaining its neutrality. I would agree with Dr. Nazir Hussain that we should not take any side, and particularly Pakistan should try to move from its geopolitics to geo-economic policies by maintaining neutrality in regional conflict. Uh, that will be the best option because we can be benefited from KSA equally from Iran as well and some other countries in the Middle East. But the main base for our policy making must be moving from geopolitics to geoeconomics. I thank you very much, and I'm ready if there was any question.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm really grateful to all our worthy panelists for today's insightful discussion on a topic of great significance. Now, I would like to request Chairman COPAIR Ambassador Khalid Mahmood for his concluding remarks. Sir, you have the floor now. Okay, so now the floor is open for question and answer session. The first question that we have is directed to any of the panelists who would like to answer it. It is by Ms. Asma Khalid Qureshi, who is a Senior Research Associate at COPAIR. She asked that there is frictions among Middle Eastern regional states due to divergent political interests. So is there any workable option to prevent the friction and maintain cordial ties among the regional players, and how OIC can play a role to stave off chaos in the region? Any of the panelists can answer this question. It is open to all.
Okay, as I was talking about role of OIC in the Middle East, I have already highlighted that during early period, there were a lot of opportunities to establish cooperation between different regional states in the Middle East. And at that time, particularly most of the Arab states were ready to resolve their differences with Iran, and Iran was also ready to resolve its differences with the Arab states. But today, I think economically, almost all the regional states in the Middle East are facing challenges. That is why, on the first level, I think they should start cooperation with each other for establishing peace and security in the Middle East. And secondly, in the peaceful environment, they can establish their economic activities, because peace and stability and peace and security is one of the common objective in the Middle East. So this issue can be one of the meeting point for almost all the countries. And OIC can also pursue peace and stability in the Middle East by its meetings and by encouraging regional states. This will be, I think, a viable solution.
I would like to add what Dr. Kandil Saab is saying. He is very much right that OIC has a strong role. But we should not forget the role of GCC countries. And they are having more potential to, because they are few and they are having common stakes. They are sharing borders with each other, especially the Saudi Arabia and its neighbors. And if they enhance their role as a regional organization, the policymakers sitting in GCC countries organization, then it would be better to, it would be good for them. And if, we all know that their politics is not internal, that is not only the Middle Eastern differences and stakes, but they are playing on the agenda of different international powers and great powers. So I think that this is the time that they should, if they want to have strength against Iran even, then they have to resolve their issues. And apparently they are having two blocks, prominent blocks. So I think in addition to OIC, GCC is having more capacity to resolve internal feuds of Arab states involved in direct clash or at least conflict with each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I will now move on to the next question that we have from Agha Sayyid Muntazir Mehdi, who has also joined us. He asked that how you see India's outreach to the Muslim world and its impression on Islamabad and Kashmir, as we have seen the Muslim world's affinity towards India. Professor Dr. Nazir Hussain, if you would like to answer it.
Thank you. It's a very important question because time and again we are stuck with the past history of India. I think the current international relations is more focused on bilateralism than the third party in our bilateralism. India has been very good in terms of their approach towards Middle Eastern states because they are business minded and they would like to sell business. And as I told you that borrowing from Ms. Amna Malik, they understand the business dynamics and what we have to sell to the Arabs, but we have to sell to the Middle Eastern states. That's important. So therefore, if India is fast approaching the Middle Eastern states, I think we have left behind. We still think that the past experience of 1970s would still work out. As I told you that to my audience also, I told you that the current leadership of the Middle East and Arab states is no more under the burden of the Pakistanis, what they have done to them in terms of labor, modernization, aviation, etc., etc. So I think India is moving fast. Pakistan should not be concerned. Pakistan should make its own house in order. What we can sell, what we can give them. In fact, what we can, how we can be relevant to the Middle Eastern states. That's important. There are so many other things which I would not be recording myself because in a closed door meeting we can say a few things, but in an open discussion it is difficult. So one thing is that please make Pakistan relevant to the Middle Eastern states, not in terms of religion, not in terms of culture, but in terms of politics, in terms of economics, in terms of finances. Thank you.
I would like to add what Dr. Sab said, if you allow me, please. Dr. Sab is very right that our capacity is limited to establish business, and India is always meant for business. But when we are talking about Muslim world, that is not confined to the Middle East alone. You see that OIC meeting was going on here in Islamabad, and it was a great initiative taken by Pakistan along with Saudi Arabia with the support of our Saudi brethren. But at the same time, we saw that Central Asian states were having a summit in India instead of joining. Their foreign ministers were there in India instead of joining us in Islamabad. So we should review our capacity. We are having a reactive foreign policy. And when we see that India is doing something, then we try to make inroads. But India is planning for the next 25 years, and they start working on the direction, and then they make it. And we just see that how India has done it. And it is hard to replace and make inroad in what India has created for itself. So we have to plan that how we can approach Muslim world as a whole. And we have to adopt a multi-dimensional policy to make sustainable development and economic relations with the whole Muslim world. And that sustainable economic cooperation can lead to good political and strategic relations as well. Thank you.
I just want to add, Zorav, if you allow me, uh, uh, we need to focus on our social and economic context, because if you see how Bollywood is penetrating in Middle East, so if we also our dramas, our actors, actresses can be also an ambassador, our musicians, our artists can also be ambassadors, and they can also penetrate, because in this era of this hybrid warfare, digital diplomacy with the help of our social activists, our celebrities can also play an important role. And regarding economy, what we have to offer, alhamdulillah, we have many natural resources on which we can tap the Middle East, not only the Middle East, all over the world. I give you an example of salt. Salt in the raw form used to go to India for trade, and we were unable to process that salt and to utilize the international market. And India made tremendous profits out of that. So this is one of the product which we can process over here in Pakistan, and with the patronization of the government, we can sell and get some foreign resources. Another example is the gemstone industry. If we have a, because we kept on doing the policy advocacy on this gemstone institutionalization of gemstone industry, and we requested the government, and now they agreed, and they are planning to develop an authority on gemstone. And this is something a great achievement, because if we work on our gemstone industry, we'll be able to get rid of our loans from IMF, because it's a very big industry. We are having ruby reservoirs, we are having emerald reservoirs. We just need to have a good finishing setup and some kind of a tourist attraction where the people should come and see, like Bangkok, that how this gemstone industry is manufacturing and doing the process and finishing the gemstones. And it is going to be a very big market, but it is also the government needs to pay its attention in this market. We were and we are quite self sufficient in our agriculture resources. Agriculture is also something that we need to work on, how we can target the international market. Our meat is having a great demand. Then, if we talk about our textile, China is considered to be dominating everywhere, but the kind of cotton we are producing in Pakistan, it is having high demand all over the world. But there are challenges. There are things like sometimes the business community is interested to penetrate in these countries, but somehow they are not having the backing from the foreign office, or sometimes they are not having the backing from the Ministry of Commerce. And then there is a confusion that if we really need to work and penetrate as an individual, and what Dr. Kandil mentioned regarding the system, then the individual and system cannot work if the state is not supporting them. So this is very important, that there should be a one window solution to all the things. Then I think our individuals and systems are good enough, and corporates are good enough to penetrate into the Middle East market. So I believe we need to work on socio-economic penetration in Middle East. Women and youth collaboration is also, that is very important. Thank you very much.
Um, thank you so much, ma'am. Um, the third question that we have is what are the areas through which the challenges emerge due to the increasing Indian influence in the Middle East can be mitigated? Professor Dr. Amna, would you like to share your views on this question?
Oh, yes. I think that prospects and challenges are side by side each other. But more challenges are in terms of survival, in terms of recruitment in Pakistani labor, in terms of recruitment of Pakistani managerial and technical staff, because Indians are having this practice that wherever they are, they prefer to recruit and induct Indians only. And since they are in controlling positions and they are having good relations with the civil administration in the Middle Eastern countries, so they pose challenge for Pakistani induction. And moreover, Pakistanis are having less capacity to perform their efficiency, to show their efficiency in working, because they are not skilled and they are not trained properly, and their temperament is not very good for working for hours, and they are not enough motivated. So I think that is one of the area. Moreover, you are having challenges in dealing with having contracts. Having Miss Amna can throw more light because she is practically working there. But we can find some of the areas where there are gaps. A very big halal industry is waiting for us, and we have to penetrate in that. And as Ms. Hamna pointed out, that we can send value-added things instead of sending it in raw forms. Second challenge comes, apart from economy, second challenge comes from political terms. We are having not sustainable relations in terms of politics even. We normally we see that the visits from Pakistan are materialized when there is some urgency of some aid or grant or a requirement for deferred payment, supply of oil, etc. So they take it as our interest. We have to establish sustainable political relations in number of areas and sharing avenues where they can feel that this is our own interest. In terms of strategic alliance, we are just confined to providing security to the Holy Lands only, and the cooperation which was previously very active, as Ambassador Saab is having witness about that. Those security relations are now squeezing with the interests of Indian military. So we have to address that, and we have to expand our relationship. Obviously, Pakistan military is having a lot of potential to penetrate into Middle Eastern security and help and providing them technology, etc. So, and fourthly, I personally feel, as Ms. Hamna pointed out, and Dr. Nazir Saab, Dr. Kandil, all are stressing our cultural relations. I know that some of the very prominent dramas like Tanhaiya and others are being translated into Arabic, and some of my students are playing their role there because they are Saudis basically, and they are translating. But we should do more to market them, market this material in competition to what has been provided by Indians. So our marketing skill, our skill of advance and penetrating, and our edge to be a Muslim should be utilized in that regard. And not only government, but private sector should take initiative to enter in that area to start peoples to peoples relations and cultural entrance in the present scenario, where all these countries are opening their culture to normalization like the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to request Chairman COPAIR Ambassador Khalid Mahmood for his concluding remarks. Sir, you have the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, naturally, I would like to commend Ms. Amna Malik for taking the initiative to organize this webinar on a very topical and important issue, emerging dynamics in the Middle East, policy options for Pakistan. We already heard eminent scholars giving their views on the changing geopolitical and economic landscape in the Middle East, and how these changes are posing some challenges and opportunities for Pakistan. As you know, that this area, the Middle East, has been in flux, in turmoil, I would say, in fact, since long period, particularly talking of the recent times after World War I, with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, new states were carved out in this region. and issue, the question of Palestine arose. Ever since this area has not seen peace or stability, it has been marked by turmoil, wars, intifada, Arab Spring, intra-Arab disputes, and also there are reported intelligence sharing. But Saudi Arabia is insisting that no normalization with Israel can take place unless the Arab peace initiative, Arab peace plan is agreed, and which called for withdrawal of all Israeli occupation from the areas occupied during 1967 war and return of Palestinian refugees. But no progress on that. So this is the problem, that while there is no progress on the adoption or implementation of the Arab peace plan, the Arab world is normalizing relations with Israel. What's more, in fact, as was pointed out, there is also talk of a Quad emerging, which will include also India in this new power configuration in this region. So this is one development. The second development is that the diminution of US interest in this area. I would not say the complete US withdrawal as yet, but this process is now more pronounced under President Biden. Having assured Israel's security by demolishing Iraq, Syria, Libya, Israel doesn't face now any security threat. So America, which used to provide security cover to these Arab countries of the region, is withdrawing a little bit, And secondly, US is now less dependent on the hydrocarbons of this region. Consequently, it has adopted a position on Yemen, which is not to the liking of Saudi Arabia. It has criticized Saudi Arabia on the Khashoggi incident. And in fact, now United States declared policy is to focus on containment of China, which means that it is now more focusing on the Indo-Pacific, AUKUS, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Uyghurs, and trade war with China. So the focus of United States has a little bit shifted now. But it doesn't mean that United States will be completely withdrawing from this region. It still retains its interest because this dependence on hydrocarbons will remain for quite some time. And also the US alliance with Israel remains important. And what's more, United States still remains interested in ensuring that Iran does not become a nuclear power. So that's why they are having these negotiations for the revival of JCPOA. So another development which I see which is a good development, is some normalization of relations among the Gulf countries. As you know, Qatar for a long time was being targeted by a group of other Gulf countries. So there have been some patch up among them following the UFAD GCC summit. And there are also now some moves of rapprochement between UAE and Iran, between UAE and Saudi Arabia, between UAE and Syria. Of course, these are initial steps, but there is a movement or desire on the part of the countries to sort out their differences. This is a good development, and such movement development needs to be encouraged. So what I see is there are two-pronged approach. One is that these Middle Eastern countries are getting together and normalizing with their relations with Israel to counter their perceived threat from Iran. This is one major driver, of their policies. At the second time, they are also trying to ensure to minimize their perceived threat from Iran by making overtures to Iran. So these are the two major developments, But another development in this region is that it is the entry of China. Because China already had very close commercial economic ties with, as to secure their oil supplies, with Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others, And now it has also unveiled a 25-year, $400 billion deal with Iran. So it means that China trying to fill in the whatever space United States leaves, in this region. Russia has also started a comeback in this region, but particularly in Syria, and that is in the security field. But as I said, you cannot still say that the United States has completely withdrawn from this region. Israeli alliance remains important. Hydrocarbons dependence will remain there for some time. And to check terroristic activities, any possible from Afghanistan, it wants to retain over the horizon, as they say, capability utilizing these Middle Eastern countries. And of course, it would not like to give a very free hand to China or Russia in this region. And on the other hand, the Middle East countries also, they remain dependent at still, on the US support for security coverage. But of course, they have started exploring new options because there are reports of even Saudi Arabia having talks of defense cooperation with Russia. And rightly, these countries are now focusing more on economic development. They have various vision, Saudi Vision 230, Qatar Vision, Bahrain economic vision, all are having these long-term plans. But the result of all this, there are some good developments and there are bad developments. But unfortunately, the Palestinian cause has been hit hard. There has been all these developments have resulted in a setback to the Palestinian cause, which is unfortunate, but it can cause serious problems in the time to come unless it is resolved, in accordance with the UN resolutions. So what are the policy options for Pakistan in this? As has been rightly pointed out, that we should try to promote harmony among the Arab states, but not be very proactive. We should be discreet, not taking sides, always taking position on merit, and not try to pull our weight up, but they say not pull above our own weight. We should be conscious of our limitations, But I know that these countries, they do appreciate Pakistan's efforts in this regard, and we should continue that way. Secondly, we should try to further promote our bilateral ties with these countries. Of course, there are already defense collaboration with these countries. Of course, India is trying to, as Dr. Amna Mahmood said, that India is squeezing in. But still, I think we have very robust defense cooperation with these countries, and we should further build upon that. But what's more now, also give greater attention to forging economic and commercial cooperation. We should identify what are the now opportunities which are opening up under these various economic visions adopted by these countries. And it has been rightly pointed out that we have to prepare skilled manpower. The days of unskilled are over. Now it is they are not only skilled, but even of these emerging technologies. In Saudi Arabia, a huge new city, Neom, is coming up, which is just focused on promotion of this new emerging technology, artificial intelligence, and quantum computers, etc. So we have to prepare our manpower to meet these new requirements. So I would suggest that our manpower division should mount an exploratory mission to these countries to identify these new opportunities which are coming up and prepare our manpower accordingly. Reference has been made to promote tourism. Of course, there are prospects for that. And what's more important is that to encourage these countries to become part of CPEC. CPEC, we are establishing special economic zones, and these economic zones are open to the rest of the international community. And who could be better partners than these Middle Eastern countries to come and invest in these special economic zones. Of course, the role of private sector is important, but it would need government help and encouragement. Another aspect is that we should maintain our support to the Palestinian cause, because this cause is principled position. And it is comparable to Kashmir issue, because they both involve right of self-determination, both involve implementation of the UN resolutions. And particularly we Pakistanis cannot cannot ignore the most central issue of Al-Quds al-Sharif. So we should, I think, whatever changes are taking place, we should maintain our support to the Palestinian cause. Of course, we should support and stick to the Arab peace plan, which, as I said, calls for withdrawal of Israeli troops from the areas it occupied in 1967, and also establishment of a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. We should also leverage our membership of the LOC. The latest example is this recently held extraordinary, Islamic Conference of Foreign Ministers. Of course, it was confined to Afghanistan, but it did speak on the issue of Palestine. I wish they should have also addressed the situation in the Indian occupied Kashmir. So in the case of OIC, I have one suggestion, and that is that so far our involvement is mostly in the political security issues, while OIC offers many opportunities in the economic, social, cultural fields, which we are not deriving benefit, in these fields. Islamic Development Bank, Islamic Solidarity Fund, and there are so many other, opportunities which are available within the OIC framework. I think we should address to those aspects also, and not just always talking of political security or arms control issues. Of course, I would conclude by saying we have, like any other country, have to keep our national interest the uppermost. And we have to inculcate self-reliance, but that is possible only if there is political stability and there is economic development. And rightly now, this government is focusing on comprehensive security, not just hard military security, and which involves giving precedence to geoeconomics over geopolitics. But here I want to clarify that these are two wheels of the same cart. Geoeconomics doesn't mean that you ignore geostrategic. I think these two wheels have to run in parallel. So these are my humble views on the evolving situation in the Middle East and how it provides challenges and opportunities to Pakistan. So again, I thank all the participants, Dr. Nazir, Dr. Amna Mahmood, Dr. Kandil Abbas, and most of all, the president of COPAIR for organizing this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful remarks. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of today's webinar, which really has been enlightening. I would like to extend my gratitude once again to President COPAIR, Ms. Amna Munawar Awan, Chairman COPAIR, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, our worthy panelists, Professor Dr. Nazir Hussain, Professor Dr. Amna Mahmood, and Dr. Syed Kandil Abbas, and all the participants for joining us on today's webinar. So thank you once again. Take care. Allah Hafiz.